Welcome back to CrossTalk, the pod where we tackle crucial and sometimes controversial topics young adults are talking about. Here we also try to bridge the generational gap by bringing people of all ages and stages to share their wisdom. We're back here with Karen.
Hello.
Hello. And you might see two new faces this time. We did a little switcheroo-skis between episodes, which is also new for us. So joining us today, we have David Stansbury, former Anglican pastor, now become a senior pastor of New Wine Vineyard in Lorraine. Mm-hmm. He also is an advocate of the man bag. So
absolutely.
I support that. So,
amen, sister.
And then we have Mark Stafford, aka Wally, and if you have joined any of our in-person events as CrossTalk, you would know he is the face of the in-person events. But it has taken us up till now to get him to agree to join the podcast because he conveniently had things on every other time we have had this. So welcome, Mark.
Thank you.
Welcome, Mark.
I appreciate the long intro.
Oh, you're welcome. I thought about it long and hard. So this season, we are obviously talking about the season that we are in, which is the festive season. You know, we did a little sprucey studio makeover today. And last episode, we obviously tackled the not so great aspects of the holiday season, such as loneliness, financial burdens, consumerism, and all that stuff. But today, we are actually here to talk about the real reason behind Christmas, and that is Jesus. And we so aptly titled it, He is the Reason, because, you know, He is the reason for the season. It's a quote somewhere. Go look it up. Believe me. Okay? So, I'm going to start off with a light question as normal, although apparently they're never actually light questions. But what is one of the first Christmas services you remember attending? Just for background, PK, Karen, and Mark grew up in the Salvation Army and Anglican background.
And PK.
So, yeah. So what is one of your first memories? Because you've probably got many Christmas services, you know, in the books. You can rock, paper, scissors.
There's a problem there because many of us are not going to remember. It's like what stands out. So I would be honest and say, which is maybe a very un-Christianese kind of approach, and say I don't recall anything as a child from any particular Christmas service. Yeah. Frightening to say.
If it makes you feel better, the first one I remember is playing my Nintendo DS at Word of Faith. So during the whole service. So I also don't, but I remember the DS.
I remember we used to open Christmas presents after we would open, now I've got to think about it. We would definitely open one present on Christmas Eve.
Yes.
And then I think eventually it progressed to
all of them.
All of them, I think. I can't remember now. It's been a while since I was a kid. But I remember going to the service and just thinking, there's a present waiting for me at home. There's a present waiting for me at home. Because I was a very spiritual, immature, 5-year-old.
Yes.
But yeah, I remember that. And I do remember the candlelight services and just feeling like it was, I don't know, I think there was something, just the atmosphere and the music, and you just felt like you were in something special. So yeah, I remember those fondly.
Yeah, I think I would probably agree with him. I can't specifically think of one because I think as a PK, you're either part of the service in an illustration or something, you're there, or you're kind of asleep on a couch. Waiting to go home. So I think for me, if I can piggyback on what Karen was saying, is the same kind of thing. Because I remember we did also started with that New Year's Eve. We would have one present, and then we progressed to just opening them all because Christmas Day was crazy. And I think if I had to recall one that I remember very well is waking up on a Christmas Day and walking into the living room, and there was just presents everywhere, like came out of nowhere, only to find out that my parents had stored all the presents at the church and brought them all the night before. So it was ridiculous. So we actually thought Santa was like, whoo, man's got big bags. So it's like, it was good.
Were you and your siblings the ones that try to look through all the cupboards to find?
100%.
I can see why your
no, we
parents, I
100%
can see
did it.
them.
But then when we found the stuff, we would be like, oh, I didn't want that. But we wouldn't say anything. We would be just as happy on the day.
Okay. So obviously the main focus about this is he's the reason. Okay. So what does the phrase Jesus is the reason for the season mean to you personally?
Oh, you're asking me to go first. Thanks, guys, and you can all feed off my response. But I think being and maybe I'm going to jump because I don't know what the other questions will be. But for me, it's got no religious meaning at all, and it's got no churchese or Christianese meaning. Is because for me, my discovery of Jesus was apart from, as such, formal church, apart from anything Christianese, anything religious. I just discovered this when, for me, I had an encounter with Jesus. Let's just put it without making it too difficult, and just realizing that for me, it's about His love, that God would consider this world so much that He would be prepared to come and step into this fallen, messed up humanity, and and make Himself known, make Himself vulnerable, that we could choose to respond yes or no. For me, wow, if that's the reason why you came, then I'm in. I'll buy that. I don't buy the religion, but I buy Jesus. Because if for me, this is God. And if that is who God is, and I know that is God, wow, that's for me the reason. If He wasn't prepared to do that, then where does it leave us? But now I have worth, I have value. I feel loved, even if no one else does, Yeah, so for me, that's in a nutshell. Yeah.
I think for me, just the fact that God would choose to send His Son as a helpless baby, the right from the very beginning, the vulnerability and the just sort of the miracle of the virgin birth and all of that. We wouldn't have Easter, we wouldn't have resurrection, we wouldn't have, the price paid at the cross if it hadn't been for the fact that He came into this world in the first place. And so, as much as, it's not about, this sweet little baby being all powerful, what have you, like he cried and He was in a manger and like He came into mess. And I think for me, just having experienced like this human life that is so full of mess, that God would have chosen to bring His Son, the Savior of the world, in such a vulnerable, small, insignificant and difficult way. I don't know. There's something really profound about that. And I've always been struck about Emmanuel, God with us, and that God came down and just chose to live like we live, to understand us in such a way, like the approachability and the anticipation, being a mom and just anticipating the birth of my own children, and having raised them from, these helpless little newborns into functioning humans, like that. It's a journey. It's such an incredible journey. And so I think of like the moment when Jesus became so real to me, where just spiritually I was like that helpless baby in my mess, and the journey of like growing in maturity and stuff, like how He grew and we grow with Him. Yeah.
Sure. To piggyback off of what you guys have said, I think for me, even going back to our previous question, where like our first thoughts of Christmas was, as a kid, it's like the presents. it's the presents. And it's like, yay, we get all these things, and we get to open up, and we have this excitement about it. And I think for me, I remember one thing as a child. My mom always used to do, every Christmas time she would have a cake, and then we would sing happy birthday to Jesus, and then we would say, well, if it's Jesus' birthday, why are we getting all the gifts? And I think for me, the thing about Christmas, or the reason for the season, is answered in that kind of like hope and expectation of the gifts we receive, is this representation of what God's giving us, and this hope and origin story of the cross. So I think for us, it's that idea of, it's such an awesome thing to think that I'm opening gifts with the hope of getting what I want. Meanwhile, we're actually thinking about the hope of what God is giving us on this day. So I think for me, it's like that reason for the season for me is understanding that even the representation of the gifts is this representation of Christ come as a baby to us, the gift of what is to come.
So now, how, if this was not like a Christian podcast or there was no religious connotation to it, how would you interpret it then? That same sentence, without any religious beliefs attached to it?
It's a holiday. I think if we take Jesus out of that equation of this hope that we have as Christians, rather it becomes the hope of what I receive, the hope of the gifts that someone's going to give me, or the hope that I'm noticed by someone. I think that the idea of Christmas then becomes so much about you, and so much about what you receive, and so much about what you get, the day off, the presents, the potential lunches, and those kinds of things. I think it becomes very self-absorbed, in my opinion.
Well, I think as I was saying, that's in a way, this is an easy question, because I would never have interpreted it from a religious one. And I think unfortunately for me, what irks me about Christmas is the mixture of where religion gets thrown in, and then you miss Jesus then. So for me, however you see Jesus, a lot of people, someone, let's say, who doesn't get the Christian faith will still tell you Jesus is a significant person in history. Why is he a significant person? And for me, it answers all the questions even of the season. Even if I wasn't a Christian, there has to be a reason to give. There has to be a reason to love. There's got to be a reason to be grateful, to a season where you feel warmth and love and acceptance and special and precious. And Jesus is all of that. So even if you don't get the faith part of it, you get the person. If you know who Jesus was, even from an historical perspective, even if you study history, for me it's saying, wow, he gives us every reason for the season without any religious connotations. He is love, he is grace, he is giving personified, he is generosity, his worth, his value personified, for me.
I was just thinking, just again, piggybacking off what these guys have said, but I'm a Christmas movie junkie. I start end of October, with the cheesy movies, because I don't need a brain to watch them, and the storylines are pretty much all the same. But the thing that is most significant, if you look at the themes to them, people are looking for love, they're looking for significance, they're looking for belonging, and they're looking for the warmth and that assurance of not only I'm found, and people have marketed off of that really well. But it's that inherent need within all of us for love, significance, belonging, understanding, purpose. We try to find that. If we do it outside of Jesus, then you're trying to find it in the things. You're trying to find it in the parties. You're trying to find it in the memories, or the as we would say, the hallmark moments of these phenomenal meals, and trying to create this perfect moment where it feels like there's peace. Because at the end of the day, that's, I think, what we're also hungry for is peace. But it's a counterfeit peace if it's not in Jesus, because moments end, but Jesus is eternal.
Yeah. do you guys have any? You've mentioned Hallmark movies, and we asked this one in the previous episode as well, but this one is specifically focusing on the day, not the holiday. Do you have any quirky family traditions that make your holiday celebrations special? So that makes Christmas extra special?
Definitely the turkey. That's like my North American tradition that we go turkey hunting through all the shops to try to find the biggest one. And then it's when we come home from church on Sunday morning, Christmas morning, it's getting that turkey stuffed and in the oven and just Christmas music on and, being together in the kitchen. It's a big part of the day before everyone arrives because we normally host Christmas at our house. And for me, those times when everyone's got their little jobs, like, Gavin does the stuff that he makes and Ben's now got his stuff that he makes and what have you. But those moments of just being together over the food, it's really special.
Well, I suppose to me, having someone that could say, it's quite interesting, you remember a lot, but I think what I remember about Christmas is always family. I don't remember so much the things that we did, but it was almost as though we will, obviously you do church, so you do your thing. But in the end, I suppose as a child, you live for the afterwards, what we do as family. And for me, it's funny if I don't remember the gifts. I remember little things, but what I do remember is this incredible sense of gratitude for being family. That if you had no gift today, even as a child, it was almost like my dad was showing us that somewhere, this great gift, this love that we share, a home, like you were saying, a belonging. I mean, one of the little funny parts was always my gran made a trifle. This is when we were children now, so we're talking in the Rundepest. Okay, so when she made a trifle and then she would hide money in it. Good old PK style, you can scrounge for R1 or two when, if you can get it free, that's... So Gran used to hide at R2 or R1 or whatever it was in those days. So I think that was always a precious thing. Yeah, and I think the one other thing that was a memory from my childhood was that my dad would, as his tradition, we would listen to this, what do they call it in those days? A proper album? A record. That thing, an LP, yeah. And then he would play out somebody telling the Christmas story, and we would preempt it. You did it for all my childhood, and yet there was something special because the story, incredible getting caught in God's story was it's something bigger than us. His story, and we have a part in His story. Yeah, so that's my part.
Sure. I think as a PK, this is where this kind of gets weird because I think the only thing that we did as a family was the meals, and then obviously the family nap would be highlight, And then we would just get straight back into Christmas caroling. We'd have to go out on the street. We had our brass instruments and whatever. We would go and carol singing. So I think as a PK, it was just that idea of we were busy on Christmas, but when it was coming together and eating and all of that, that was where we were together, and then everyone passing out on the couch kind of thing.
How can we celebrate Christmas in a way that fosters connection and healing, regardless of background, like faith backgrounds? Because like we discussed in the previous episode, this is a season where a lot of people often their own stuff gets overlooked because you're supposed to be joyful and holly and jolly. It's the most wonderful time of the year, all that stuff.
The mask of Christmas. I guess for me, the biggest thing about that was the idea of when you come to family or come to a place of connection with family, it was just, you're allowed to be you. If you were upset, it's okay. We can talk about it after the nap, obviously, and really get to a place where we can just be ourselves. I think the way that we probably did that is probably through the idea of it's okay, we can talk about things, and it's a great festive mood in the house. So we kind of get that space of just saying, okay, well, we can be real here. We're safe here, I guess you can say it that way. We're safe here, and we have this open communication with family. It's not always easy because half the time we're fighting about who's eating the last piece of this, who's taking the last thing of that. And we had a stretch and starve mentality. So we would just go crazy. But I think it's that idea of just home is where we're able just to be you. And because of Christmas, we try to make it just a family thing. So we can have a chat, we can talk, we can be a part of it. And almost put worries aside. It felt like as much as we were going through stuff, Christmas became a time where we can just like, it's okay. I can be happy. I can be excited. I can always bring up this stuff tomorrow. I guess if that was how I could look at it, like creating that safe space. It's authentic. We're at home, but also that it's a time where we can just genuinely just be happy for what it is.
I think a season of love, for me is it's interesting when you speak in Jesus, we always say he personifies love. What we celebrate in the season is all about his giving and his love and his grace and his welcoming, he's inviting us, God is for us. And yet you become more aware of the opposite. Mm-hmm. Not him, but the opposite. So I find at Christmas, I'm more aware of people that don't fit in. When I do a Christmas service, I see many people for whom they're going home and there is no family. There probably is no gift. There is no reason to celebrate. And so you become more heightened. And so the question that you're asking is, I think you become more aware of the thing that Jesus came. If we're saying he came to save and he came to welcome back. I mean, I love this picture. I just love the picture of ultimately Christmas for me is this prodigal God that pursues this naughty humanity of which I would perfectly personify. And he comes after me and he's prepared to pursue me, give up the glory of heaven, and he comes and he gives the self-giving of God. And yet I think it's a challenge to us that we need, how do we express that? So how do I find someone who perhaps has only known ungrace, or someone when we sing about love, for God so loved the world, and that love is not real because we, Christians, humans, we don't demonstrate it. So my dad always taught me, so how do we include people who don't know grace this Christmas, who don't know love, who not even a recipient of any generosity or any giving or any gift. So how do we include? So I think in the sense of celebrating love, you become, for me, challenged. How do I love, let's say, that which is not loved? How do you extend grace to those that you would often term there's a whole lot of ungrace here. So for me, that's the challenge. So I end up in this season, it's the most joyful because of the hope of Jesus, and yet the most sad for his world, that he so desperately wants to know that he loves, and yet we just don't get it right. We just, so much, we keep the love here. And I believe he is to share. And I don't think we get that right. So I'll be honest about that. So for me, it's highly challenging, the question you've asked, because I think we need to do more. We talk about healing and connectivity, not that which I'm comfortable with. In other words, the close here, but outside, beyond.
I can't remember if I mentioned this in the last one or not, but something that my parents' church does, which I thought was really special, is they have what they call a Blue Christmas. And they have a special service for those that are grieving, or Christmas is really hard, or that joy isn't able to be easily accessed for whatever reason. And it's just holding a space for the tension of, in the midst of all the celebrations around, there's also broken hearts. And to just take a moment to honor them, to even take notice of the, your loved one who's not going to be at the table this year, or what have you, that there's a place of coming together in community, going, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one who is hurting. So it sounds kind of morbid, and yet it was such a beautiful, honest, and hope-filled space because it brought honor to pain in order to make space for joy. So it wouldn't be one at the expense of the other, or having to slap on a happy face, but inside your heart is breaking. There was a safe space for your heart to to come and be tended to. So I thought that was a really meaningful thing. And it's been something I've been reflecting on since I heard about it, and just thought, I wonder what that could look like. I try to become mindful, and it's just, I think for me, being away from family over Christmas, this is often a really painful season for me. And so I've tried to cultivate an awareness or a mindfulness of people around me who might be similar. So for us, like on Christmas Eve, we tend to invite people over who don't have family, and we kind of build our own. But even those where I know they've experienced a significant loss or have had a really hard year, just to kind of like, even just dropping a message and going, hey, I'm thinking of you and praying for you. I know that this could be a tough year or a tough season, and just acknowledging rather than, oh, I don't want to be awkward, or what if I stir stuff up? But rather know that you're seen. Yeah. And I think that was something that Jesus is so good at, is seeing the person who everyone else walks by, or seeing or being aware of the hurting heart and the person who just needs a touch to know that even in the midst of all the consumerism, all the busyness, all the meals, all the planning, all the parties, I'm not invisible, and my heart is noticed. You might not be, you can't fix that hole, but it's a healing balm to just be seen, and to have that space to go, yeah, I'm sad. Yeah.
And if I just had to hop back to what David said, why do you think it's something that we find so challenging to do? We're taught, you read, when we've experienced Jesus' love, we've experienced God's love, and we read about it in the Bible, and we see how it's been done before. But why do you think in recent times it's become such a difficult thing, I think, for people to do, to step out and do?
I think by nature, in this society, we've become pain avoidant. We don't want to walk into the hard spaces because it brings up discomfort in us. And so we have been conditioned to numb. And whether that be, getting your scrolling or, avoidance or what have you, that it's like our inability to be able to hold space in discomfort. We're so hungry for comfort that we'd rather not go there or not look, which is, and so we've lost that skill. The great thing with skills is you practice them and you can gain them back again. But I do feel like in general, and I am generalizing, God's cut in here, but like as a society, we don't want to willingly move into discomfort.
Yeah, I think one of the things, and when you're answering, and my family always says, they always use this word, you got to be politically correct. So obviously with me, that doesn't always go right because I'm just going to land it anyway. Yeah. So it means if there's no runway, I'm going to land the plane. It's just one of my things. But what I'm meaning here is that I had the privilege of for 19 years ministering in a multicultural community. And I mean, your parents, Mark, also ministered in the same community. And one of the great gifts I learned was that Africa, despite how the world looks at Africa, and the reason I'm using this example is Africa understands community. Actually, Christianity in the West has lost something that is very biblical, which is called the interdependence, or I need you, not because or you need me, because I always think if people need me, it's a great thing because I've got something and they don't have. But we've lost interdependence. We've lost the fact that you bring something to my life as I bring something to yours. And we're part of each other in community. And I think this whole understanding, we use this phrase, and the multicultural community taught me this across all of Africa, not just South Africa, is that it takes a community, it takes a town, it takes a village, to build a child or to grow a child. And that's the truth. And Western Christianity has lost it. So I think we've been conditioned to exactly opposite to what you were saying, is we're not aware because we've been so conditioned, so indoctrinated, so, blinkered by individualism. And as you were saying, comfort and complacency, we just can't get there. And we don't see the value of community.
Yeah.
We don't feel safe in community. Yes, there's a richness. And we become, someone said once that you become more of Christ in community than as an individual. Once you learn, because we're diverse, because we're different, because we challenge, because we create problems for each other. There's friction, there's conflict, and yet it's beautiful because Jesus died for all, not just for the one mold, the blue-eyed, blonde-haired boy. He died for all. He died for the very people that I think are odd or I wouldn't want them in my circle. That's exactly who he wants in his circle. So for me we've got to learn. We've got to unlearn to learn, to see the community as safe, to see it's where I find Christ and the richness of Christ, and in particularly in the season is lived in community, not just my blood family, but in the wider community, and bring people in. I believe someone who's been wounded in life, whether it's in or outside the church, is going to encounter Christ in the loving community that the church is supposed to be, which means welcoming, include people, go across the room to bring people in. Yeah. Sorry, it's a bit of a wayward journey, but I hope that answers it.
I think it's a tough one to answer because I think I agree with what guys are saying. I think we've developed this culture of being avoidant to pain and hurt. So I would rather switch that off for a day than embrace the pain of what Christmas could be like the most emotional day of your life. I think for me, I think we're so used to, and so I guess the right word you use, we're cultured into this idea of it's about me on Christmas, like this bit of a self-absorbed idea, but it's about me. So I'm going to try to make this day good, or you could say it's about me and therefore everyone's day is horrible. So what we do as Christians, we just say, okay, I'm just going to take a step back here and I'm just going to ignore my feelings for a day or for a weekend or whatever. So I think it's a pertinent question in the sense it is difficult. And I think it's a different answer to everyone because it's not an easy thing we can just like pin down. So I think it's a very, what's the word? You can only answer that question because it's hard for you for a different reason than it's hard for me. I remember even being a PK, thinking of Christmas as another work day. It is what it is, and we were there to just help other people. It was never about a me day. It was just where do you need me? What do you want me to do? So Christmas now, with the family and kids and stuff, is changed dramatically. So that has forced me to realize that it's not just about a work day. It's about more than that. It's about my kid running out of the bedroom today thinking that Santa's coming when he's actually going to school. So he's out of the room crying because he has to go see his presents. But I'm like, the presents are not here yet. So it's like, so for me, it's that unlearning. It's that realizing that it's okay to hurt. It's okay to feel. But it's also a day we also see as a day of excitement and day of just coming together. So it's a very personalized question, but it hurts for different reasons.
So you spoke about diversity and how, as a country, as a continent, we're obviously very, very diverse. How can we, respectfully and meaningfully engage with people who are from different ethnical backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, social backgrounds to us over this season, over this period, and on this day? To make them still feel included and seen and heard, despite maybe differences we might have.
I think the real thing, and the only reason I'm going to answer it because I tasted it, and when it works, it's the most beautiful thing if you can do it, because it goes against everything that we are taught. So Jesus, there's an old chorus or carol that says, how silently the wondrous gift is given. So God imparts to human hearts the gift of his heaven. Everything for us is pomp. It's force. It's my way. I set it up, and then you benefit from it. If you do more cross-cultural, if you're going to reach, like you said, across to that which is different to you, you can't do any of that. Mm. So you can only embrace the Christ of Christmas. You've got to learn humility. You've got to learn to die to the very things that are comfortable to you. And you've got to be intentional. You've got to walk across. The sense of going into your place. My dad always said, he used this phrase. He said, if you're going to win people that are in a different culture or in a different space to where you are, whether it be, ethnical, whether it be language, whether it be age, whatever it is, or just class, whatever people deem to be, you've got to go across yourself. And you've got to practice humility. And he said the greatest privilege, and this is what Jesus does, is he says, Dave, if you can imagine going under a person, so you've got to get under the ground, under their feet, and then lift them up. Then you found Jesus' way, and you've got to do it, my boy. He said, you've got to find that. Mm. You start with one person, and you work through a community. Someone that the world would say, you're outside. You go and serve them. And not from a perspective that I've got something that you need, but from equality. Mm. In other words, you teach me something. Just one quick example. I know I talk a lot. Let me just give you this one example.
Lead pastor here.
Thank you, brother. There was a young Xhosa man that taught me on the street. We did some ministry around Christmas time, and he taught me a song that stayed with me. It was a song, because I was basically saying to him, how do you survive? Christians talk to you on the street, and we talk about Jesus, but yet you stay on the street. And then he said this to me. There's a song, and it's called Kuba Wanditanda, Wandifela Egogota, Kuba Wanditanda. And it really means, because he died for me, he loves me so. He died on Calvary because he loves me so. And the reality is that you learn, now I want to sing your song. And I want to sing it where you are. Mm. And I want to do Christmas where you are, how you see it and how you experience. And if you can, as my dad would say, my boy, then you've learned something, and then you do it again. And then people say, the privilege in the end is where someone would then say to you, I married a Xhosa couple, and he said, this is how do I put it nicely? He's an African, he's a black white man. That's what he said. It's not that I'm boasting about it. It's just because I'm thankful to my dad that he booted me into that sphere and said, you walk, and you walk intentionally. You lay down your pride, your rights, your right to be right, and you get under people and you lift them up for their sake, not for yours. Sorry. Almost a nice little sermon. Sorry.
While you were talking, I was thinking, it's not for nothing that, Jesus was born in a stable. He wasn't born in his home, surrounded by the comforts or the people even that would have maybe welcomed him with celebration, but it was alone in a stable with his mom and his dad. Right from the very get-go, he wasn't in his own comfort or own environment. That I think it's opening your eyes and being willing to see outside of your bubble. And it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to be, drastically changing how you are celebrating your holiday, but even just how you look at people when you're in the shops, where it's so easy to get bogged down with irritation and frustration, regardless of who they are, but just kindness, and treating people the way that you would want to be treated, regardless. It's a good starting place anyways. And allowing, I like what you said of just laying down your rights to be right or superior or entitled. That entitlement builds up walls.
everything inside of me is saying, just skip. But I think it's so true what you guys are saying is like on the point. I think the biggest thing that you said now is the idea that at this time of year we just have to be very intentional about what we're saying, who we're saying it to, and the community is around us. I mean, we are an Ubuntu culture. It's everyone there, this inclusivity and this idea that we're all part of the same village, if I can call it that, is such a South African way of saying we're all family. So it's so intentional about what we do and how we do it, and what we're saying, what we do. So yeah, I think you guys hit it on the head, nail on the head there, kind of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, I think for our last question, Mark, this one will fall into your alley.
Oh,
come on,
great!
Marcus.
There's a first time for everything. This is it.
Your background in the Salvation Army will help you. Okay. How can we spread holiday cheer in our neighborhoods, especially to those who might feel left out?
This is for you,
Mark. Lead off, bro.
I think when a church forgets that a church is planted, a church does not. It's not self-contained. No church is self-contained. A church is there to fulfill a need. And I think a church that is understanding that we are connected to a community is a church that will do well. In that sense, what the Salvation Army did is had a saying of saying we have a heart for God and a hand to man. It just makes it so much more, I guess, humanizing of the church to say that we're not just a group of people that come together, but we're a group of people that can make a change when we come together. And I think it's the idea of that saying, so what we'll do is then, like the Salvation Army would then say, okay, we're going to do open airs. We're going to expose people to what normally happens behind a church door, now to a place where we can say we can share in a common ground of saying that God loves everyone and God is with everyone. So we'll bring him to the streets, if you can put it that way. But it's like a matter of like Christmas carols and brass instruments and people asking questions and being intentional. But it's making sure that a church community is not hidden behind the walls of a church, but is open to everything that's happening outside of it.
Sure, Marcus. That's beautiful. I think just to quickly add a phrase, because I think you're spot on, like we could say to you, we'll just feed off you. But I think my dad always said, I was raised an evangelist, so what happens is then you want people to meet Jesus. And then my dad always reminded me, he said, my boy, you first meet the need and then lead them to Jesus, their true need. And you don't do it because they're not a number. You don't do it because you want, in other words, in the old days, you wanted people, 5 people gave their life to Jesus. Wow, this is it. Come on, boy, give the. But in the end, it's not about that. Is you love because he loved. You bless, you give because he's moved that in you, irrespective if they respond to Christ. And that's a message Christians need to hear. I don't want to bless. I don't want to love. I don't want to forgive. I don't want to give. Technically, so that I get means that you come to church or you give your life to Jesus. If that is it, then I've got it wrong. My desire is that they encounter Jesus in me, and I can only do that when I serve. I can only do that when I bless and I extend grace. Grace means unmerited, undeserved, to the most unqualified in my eyes. And you do it expecting absolutely zero return. Do it as what Mother Teresa's favorite phrase, whether they respond, whether they do anything, whether they acknowledge, whether there's credits, do it anyway, because you know his love. And just the last little line, because I've got to sneak the song in. Brooke, how do you pronounce it? Lichtegit? Lichtegit, the singer. She has a song called Bless God. But one of this, it just says, sing if you love his name. And then there's a part that says, bring your offering of praise if you've known his grace. That's it. If you've known his grace, share it with expectation of no return. I don't know if that answers the question. I hope it does.
I mean, it ultimately, I'm going to be so cheesy now, but it's like what came into my head while you were talking makes me think of the Nike slogan. Like,
Come on.
Yeah. That's the only way. It's the only way is you just actually have to go out and do things, talk to people, open your eyes, respond when the Spirit prompts you, and be obedient.
Okay, so I think there's lots for people to go think about after this. Luckily, there's a whole another episode to come. So we just want to thank you for joining us on this episode. And we'll see you one last time on the next episode. Bye!